What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host Chris, and today we have an extremely interesting news amidst all of the insane changings over at Disney. Starting with, specifically, and I'm sure you've heard, Bob Chapek stepping down, or we'll call it being replaced or fired, and Bob Iger returning to take over CEO and chairman of Disney. Now, it's very heavily speculated that the reason for this happening is because the board wasn't happy with Chapek's decisions, the direction that Disney was headed, and its overall success from the last few years. And yes, COVID happened and many different companies are struggling, but if you look at Disney's projection over the last 5 years, they're headed downwards. And with Disney being as big of a company as it is, there are going to be a lot of people who aren't happy with the current trends Disney's having. So, it's possible that Bob Iger's return to Disney as CEO, as chairman, as the big boss, isn't simply to right the ship during his 2 years that he signed on and then find a replacement, but perhaps it's to sell Disney altogether. We'll be talking about this news in today's video, but first be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on our daily Marvel updates. And yes, of course, this is a Marvel update. Why? Disney owns Marvel Studios. In fact, Marvel Studios is one of the many companies over the last 10-15 years that Disney has acquired. Companies like GoPro, Star Wars, Pixar, and of course Marvel Studios, along with many others, have all been picked up and brought into the fold under the belt of Disney property. And that's something that Bob Iger was very well known for during his tenure while he was in charge of Disney. But then he stepped back and we got a new CEO who the board wasn't happy with. Bob Iger's back, and what's the plan? Well, there are a few insiders who say he's going to sell the company. These are direct quotes coming from anonymous sources saying that the plan is for Iger to completely wash out Disney and to sell it out to somebody else so that they can have the money and the opportunities to continue building forward to a successful future. Now, this is not an uncommon thought coming from Bob Iger. Why? Well, specifically in Iger's 2019 autobiography, The Ride of a Lifetime, the executive wrote chapters about his friendship with Steve Jobs. He and his wife, Willow Bay, were close friends with Steve and Lorraine Powell Jobs, even spending holidays together and vacationing in Hawaii. He even writes about standing in front of Steve Jobs' grave when the tech visionary wife uttered, "I asked him if we could trust you," and Steve said, "I love that guy." So, there is a huge connection between Iger and Jobs, who we all know has passed away, but he always stated that one of his biggest regrets was not coupling up with the huge tech company. So on that huge note, it is important to realize a few things. One, Steve Jobs has passed, and now we have Cook, who is a lot more conservative with his approach to acquisitions, acquiring different companies. And Apple and Disney, although huge conglomerates, are two very different companies. Although it's very likely that Disney would still run under its own umbrella, it would have its own CEO, nothing would really change except for who was backing Disney, which would be Apple, the massive tech company. And overall, it would be a massive exchange for Disney to start anew. Because frankly, the numbers don't lie, and given the current market trends from the last 5 years, Apple's trading at $150, up 238% in the last 5 years, and Disney at $96 is down 6% in the same time frame. So not only has Disney not seen an advance in the last 5 years, they've actually dropped 6% overall. And money is what talks. Yes, we love the Disney projects. We love the franchises, Star Wars, Marvel, Pixar, and many numerous other Disney characters who we all know and love. But at the end of the day, it's all about making a profit. And if Disney doesn't start finding a way to progress, to grow in the market, well, they're going to have to make some drastic changes, and that very well could be selling the company. It's also important to mention that Apple has done business with Disney before. In fact, Disney bought the Jobs-run Pixar in 2006 for $7.4 billion. And we are all very well aware of how successful Pixar has managed to be over the years. So a lot of interesting developments will be happening over the next 2 years with Disney, and we're going to try to keep as close to the pulse of everything going on as possible here on the channel, because although we primarily talk about Marvel, what happens with Disney eventually affects Marvel. In fact, we're still waiting to hear the immediate effects of Bob Iger stepping in for Bob Chapek, whether that's going to be a cutback on Disney Plus projects, since it is widely believed right now that Bob Chapek was forcing a mandated quota, which basically is telling us that all of these extra projects we're getting with the fluffer episodes and the dissatisfied CGI animation and storytelling from Disney Plus, which is a pretty high complaint coming from fans, from you guys, over the last 2 years while we've been in phase 4. It's all been from pressure so that they could push Disney Plus and to continue to grow its resources and the money that Disney Plus is bringing in for the company. Again, this is a company that as a whole is potentially struggling to be marketable, and there are a lot of different branches that Disney owns, a lot of different things that they're maintaining and that they're trying to create. So just because Marvel and Pixar are doing very, very well doesn't mean that other areas of Disney's massive tree of finances and monies and businesses is being as equally successful. So all of the success we've been seeing from Marvel has to carry the weight financially of the other ventures that Disney has had that haven't been so successful. And that's a real bummer. And hopefully Bob Iger has a plan to bring them forward in the next 2 years so that it doesn't necessarily have to resort to selling Disney and losing some of that creative control, adding another boss over the list of the CEOs and all the others we have there. Because with more people in charge comes more creative differences and more potential issues. But it's also nice to remember that with Apple in charge, maybe there'd be more money in deeper pockets and more opportunities for expansion and a better organization of how Disney is running things. Now, my personal opinion, I don't think Bob Iger's first plan is to sell to Tim Cook. I think originally, had Steve Jobs still been around, this would be something he'd be looking at, but I think he wants Disney to still remain its own company. This is one of the most recognizable brands on the planet Earth, and it's very understandable that this is a company that should remain itself. And although it does run and own a lot of different properties, it would be kind of sad for me to see Disney passed on to Apple and for Apple to be calling all the shots from that point forward. But your guys' opinions are also important, so let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this news. If Apple were to buy Disney, do you think that that would ultimately be a good thing? Or would that be the end of Disney and potentially Marvel as we know it? Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of the other major movie and television news updates happening daily right here on The Cosmic Wonder.